Everything's good? Yes?
For sure.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay, so this is an interactive class, everybody. Feel free to ask questions to make it effective and simple. I think if you have a question, you can raise your hand. I believe there's a function in Zoom where you can raise your hand, so we're not talking over each other. And also you can put questions into the chat. And then as I'm getting into the lesson, just feel free to ask your questions. If you have a question, somebody else is probably thinking the same question or would like the answer to that question. So a little bit about me. I think some students are returning students. Some students are new students. My name is Adrian. I'm an IELTS trainer, examiner, test developer. I work with British Council, with IDP, the two big organizations that manage IELTS, and I produce some of the most popular IELTS products in the world for YouTube, for online learning. So it's fantastic to be here and to be working together with Myteacher.uz as well. You can see kind of our collaboration here on the page with our websites, aehelp.com, gltshelp.com, and of course, IELTS.myteacher.uz. So check those out when you have a minute and get some good materials to help you pass IELTS. If you have questions, you can always send me an email also, Adrian@aehelp.com. And you can check out the YouTube channels. Maybe some of you have already seen that. So without further ado, let's get into some IELTS writing. IELTS writing is arguably the most difficult section of the IELTS exam. A lot of people worry about the speaking section because you're talking to a fluent or native speaker of English, and it's a stressful situation. But in my experience, the section that's the most difficult to get a high band score is the writing section. And there are a few different reasons for that, mainly that IELTS, especially academic IELTS. Just a quick question, are most people watching today taking academic IELTS, or are there any people taking general IELTS as well?
So most of the students here are, of course, academic ones, because we usually take IELTS for academic purposes. Okay,
that's what I thought. So that's important because general IELTS, it's a little bit different. So the writing section takes 1 hour for the IELTS exam, and it has two tasks. The first task is for the academic, some type of a graph or a chart or a map. I'm not going to discuss that today. I'm going to focus on task 2 today. Task 2 is worth 2/3 of the total mark. Okay, so when your IELTS is being evaluated or scored, okay, task 1 is basically 33% or 1/3 of the total mark, and task 2 is 2/3. Now here's where a lot of people ask me the question: should I start with task 2 then? The answer is no. Okay, always start with task 1, right? And never take more than 20 minutes for task 1. You can start with task 2, by the way. There, you do have that option, but I don't recommend it. Again, there's logic to this. So the way that I teach writing, as we get into this task 2 lesson, is not by my opinion or not by what people are saying on the internet about IELTS writing and what you should and should not do. But the best way to approach the writing section and IELTS is through standard English practice and logic, okay? So Cambridge, the organization that makes the IELTS exam, they follow the standard English rules of essay writing and literature. In fact, a lot of the standard writing techniques that developed over hundreds of years in English cultures comes from Cambridge. Cambridge is one of the oldest universities, of course, in the world. So they follow those standards, and their marking criteria follows those standards. One of the big problems with a lot of the materials that people see online and elsewhere for writing is that they don't actually understand or follow these standards. So I'm going to touch on those a little bit, and we're going to focus on task 2 writing. If I'm going too quickly, because there's a lot of information that we're going to cover here today over the course of the next hour to 90 minutes, let me know. Okay, please let me know if I'm going too fast. I don't want to lose your attention or your comprehension. Okay. All right. So as we get into it, let's just quickly take a look at the question that we're dealing with today. So this is a question taken from a source online. It's a typical IELTS Task 2 question. It says IELTS Task 2 writing, you should spend about 40 minutes on this task. In the future, all cars, buses, and trucks will be driverless. The only people traveling inside these vehicles will be passengers. Do you think the advantages of driverless vehicles outweigh the disadvantages? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. Write at least 250 words, okay? So when you see the questions are designed in a way that everybody should be able to answer them, okay? Sometimes people say, well, I don't know anything about this question. Yes, you do, or you should be able to answer it. When they make these questions, IELTS tests the questions with people of different ages, different cultures, genders, to make sure that everybody can answer them as long as they're using some good thinking. Okay, so you should never feel that you cannot answer a question, right? It's in your head, you just have to find the information. Okay, so this is a typical kind of task 2 question, and I will show you what to do with it. But before we get into that, I want to start all of you on understanding the basics of English essay writing. And this is important because when you get not only to IELTS, but also to university and college, you are expected to know this information. So let me start by asking you a question. And maybe some of you, if you follow my classes, can answer this. So there are 4 basic standard types of essays in English. Does anybody know what those 4 basic standard types of essays are?
No, I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Anyone? One of them? 2 of them?
What types of essays?
You can just throw your answers in there. Don't be shy.
Opinion, problem, solution, like this?
So problems and solutions is not actually a type of essay. It's maybe a subcategory at best, but it's not a type of essay. Let me give you one. Maybe this will help you.
It's like narrative, right?
Okay, good. That's one. Somebody got one of them. So
Narrative,
yeah.
descriptive.
Okay, wait, slow down. Yeah, that's another one. Descriptive. I'm going to put that up here. There's a reason for it. Yeah, descriptive. Yeah.
Well, persuasive.
That's right. Yeah.
Expository.
Expository. That's right.
Expository.
Yes, very good. Yeah, those are the 4 main types of essays, and every other essay type that you hear, like argument, counter argument, process essay, they are subcategories. They belong to one of these main categories. Okay, so if this is new for you, that is okay. These are topics that are taught to English speakers in middle school, high school. Okay.
Narrative.
So descriptive is kind of like the king of all, okay? We'll call it the king. Descriptive is the type of writing where you are expected to describe an object, a place, a person, and that's called descriptive, okay? Descriptive writing is a part of all type of writing, and there are lots of different descriptive writing tools. I'm not going to get into all of these details today because then you will be here until the New Year's, and you probably want to celebrate New Year's and such with your family. So I won't get into too much detail, but I'll give you the main ideas. And I highly, highly recommend for all of you who are new to this, who are like, wow, I'm hearing this for the first time, Google it, okay? It's quite simple. You go on Google, you check out what is descriptive writing or what is standard descriptive essay, and Google will give you a lot of information, okay? So All writing uses descriptive forms like literary
Could you
tools.
please turn off your microphone, Mr. Lefros? It's interrupting.
Okay. All right. Persuasive essay. That's your task 2 in the IELTS. Okay. So that's where your goal is to convince your reader of an idea. Expository is your task 1 in your academic IELTS, where your goal is to explain and expose information. In the academic IELTS, you're looking at data. So you're looking at charts and graphs. Narrative is where you tell a story. So this is task 1 for the general. Okay. All right. And this is where your goal is to tell a story. All right. So these are your 4 basic types of writing in English. And some of you might be thinking, why is Adrian telling me this? Why doesn't he just show me a sample band 9 essay and let's get it over with? The reason why is because that will not help you in the IELTS really to get you a good grade. What will help you is to understand these and to practice these forms of writing, and then approach the questions knowing what to do. So my goal here is not to just, as the proverb goes, not to just give you a fish, but to teach you how to fish when it comes to writing, especially if many of you are going to university, okay? And you're going to be writing articles and journal articles and essays on the global scale, then you need to understand this. All right, so 4 types of essays, good. You have an idea there. Any questions about the 4 types of essays at this point? Is that clear? It's very quiet.
So what does it mean, convince? Can you explain?
Yeah, convince. So basically you have a reader. Let's take this task 2 writing here, for example, right? So this task 2 writing is saying that in the future, cars, buses, and trucks will be driverless. And the question is, do you think the benefits are more than the negatives? So if you feel that the advantages or the benefits of having vehicles that don't have drivers is more than the negatives, then you have to convince your writer of this idea. So you have to have them believe your argument or your point or position, okay? So when you have, let's say a 55-year-old truck driver sit down and read your essay. They've been driving trucks all their life. It's their bread and butter. It's how they make money. If they read your essay and your essay is arguing that it's better to have delivery trucks that don't have drivers, are you able to convince that truck driver that their life will be better, in fact, if cars don't have drivers? So how powerful is your ability to convince your reader? Okay. Life is subjective. Humans are subjective. And most essays in university are either persuasive or expository. That's why IELTS, academic IELTS, targets these 2 types of essay forms. Okay. Is that clear?
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, because in university also, just to give a little bit more on your question, in university also, of course, when you're doing research, when you're doing your classes, you have a hypothesis. So you have an idea, and your goal is to convince your group, your supervisor, your dissertation panel, the people who are assessing your PhD or your master's, of your ideas, of your research, right? So you're writing persuasive pieces at the highest level in those situations. Okay, so good question, by the way. So the next component that has to be understood for good essay writing are the author's voices. The author's voices. And again, there are 3 of these. Anybody know what the 3 author's voices are? So what are the 3 it's a kind of an... I kind of hear someone saying something. Is it Zamira? Try to raise your hand, viewers. I think there's a button there that you can raise your hand, and then Zukra or Shardor can unmute. Yeah.
Guys, please. please kind of raise your hands in reactions and so you will be able to speak.
Oh, excuse me. Is it like first person, second person,
Yeah, that's
third
exactly what
person?
yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So first person, second person, and third person. Exactly. Okay. It's it seems tricky, but it's not. Three voices: first person, second person, third person. Okay, good. So what these mean, and some of you might know what they mean, some of you might not, so I will quickly go over them. First person author's voice means that it's the subjective voice of the author directly from the author. Okay, so when you write an essay using the first person voice, you're using I, me, my, myself. Okay. And you're speaking directly from your own views. So in this question here, where it says, do you think the advantages of driverless vehicles? It's asking you directly, so you can use the first person voice. You can say, I believe that the advantages of driverless vehicles is better because in my experience, this is what happened. Okay, sorry. So that's the first person. The first person voice comes directly from the author, and it makes clear to your reader that this is you, the author, who is speaking. This is used especially when the author has credibility. So in this case, let's say you are the truck driver who has been driving trucks for 20 years, and you have seen a lot of accidents because of people's silly mistakes. Or truck drivers falling asleep. So if you are an expert, it's a good idea to use the first person because people will believe you. So you can say, I have been driving trucks for 20 years. This has been my jobs, and I have seen many terrible accidents. Therefore, I believe that cars without drivers will be better for society. So this is the first person. It's the direct voice of the author. The second person is when you speak directly to your audience. Okay, so directed to your audience. Okay, so this is when you use you, yourself, okay, and you're speaking directly to your audience. Now, this voice is not too common in academic writing. It's common when you are given directions. So you will notice that I'm using the second person voice in this lesson all the time because I'm teaching you and I'm telling you what to do. So instructional content will often use the second person voice. You need to do that, you need to do this, and so on, okay? But, and this is very important, you must avoid this voice in your IELTS writing and speaking. Anybody know why? And it's a very common mistake, and you're losing band scores when you do this. So when you say you in your speaking and when you use you in your writing, you're going to lose band scores. It's considered amateur mistake. Why do you think that is? So why do you lose marks if you're using you in your writing or in your speaking?
Well, in my point of view, when it's about writing, we're given a general questions about the general circumstances. That's why we're not allowed to explain that situation to the, for example, reader. That's why I guess using the second person in writing totally kills your marks. When it comes to speaking, and again, the native speaker is going to give you general questions related to your experience or something, some kind of event or circumstance in a general life. That's why you must not answer directly to the, I mean, you must not tell directly to the your partner, the one who is doing your question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the IELTS is asking you exactly for information that applies to people, to society, and not specifically to the audience. So not specifically to your reader or the examiner. One of the biggest reasons in academic and professional communication that we must avoid this second person voice is because in many cases we don't know our audience, and in fact it can be offensive, right? So you don't know your reader, okay? Maybe a self-driving Tesla crashed into them last week at a red light. So you don't want to say you when you do this or when you see this, right? So don't speak directly to your audience. You don't know if you don't know your audience and you're not telling them to do something, you're just giving them information or an opinion, it's very dangerous to use the you because you're involving them. You're giving the information directly at them. And you don't know them. You don't know if it's a man, a woman, if they're 20, if they're 50, you don't know their experiences. So you have to be careful directing the information at them when it's not a suggestion to do or take action. Okay, so you don't know who they are. So avoid that. And then the third person voice is the objective voice. Okay, that's called the objective voice of the author. So it's not personal opinion, but rather based on facts. Okay, so this is where research, statistics become very valuable. And in your university writing, almost all writing, not all writing, but almost all writing will be the third person, because the professors, the teachers, they do not want your opinion. So they don't want your experiences. They want facts. So they want to know what research shows, what case studies show. So this is where you write without using any form of the I, me, you, or such pronouns. Okay, so no use of I, me, you. And I strongly recommend avoiding the words we and us. This is a question I often get, is it okay to use we and us? In some situations, yes, but most of the time it's best to avoid we and us, because when you use we and us, you're involving your audience as well, okay? So be careful with that, okay? In the IELTS, they like to see you use in task 2 either the third person voice or the first person voice. One mistake that you must avoid if you want to get a band 6.57 or higher is to mix the voices, okay? And I do see this mistake quite often. Never mix voices, okay? So your essay should not have an introductory paragraph that's third person, which has no I, me, my, and then suddenly it introduces an I in the body paragraph, and then suddenly there's a you in the second body paragraph. That is considered a big, big mistake, and you will immediately lose at least 1 band score from the total, even if you have perfect grammar or vocabulary. So never mix voices, never combine you, I, they in your essay, okay? So what I'm saying is, if you start first person, you should have first person throughout your essay, okay? If you start third person, make sure you stay third person.
From very beginning till the end, right?
Exactly, yeah. So if it's asking for if the question asks for your opinion, what is your opinion? Then introduce your opinion in the introduction, reflect on it or refer to it in the body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Sometimes what I see is when the question says, what is your opinion? People just write a third person essay all the way to the conclusion. And then in the conclusion, they say, and in my opinion, it's like, whoa, where did that come from in the last sentence? So you should reflect it throughout the essay. Okay, so why did I start with all of this? Well, because this is the basics. This is the fundamentals. If somebody does not understand these points about the 4 types of essays and the author's voice, then it's kind of like trying to build a house without understanding that you have to build the foundation or the base of the house first. It's very difficult to build a house if you're starting with the roof or the walls, okay? So this is the foundation. This is what you need to know to start your essay. Okay, so you need to decide at the beginning of your essay whether you're writing first person or third person. In the IELTS, first person is okay. It's okay to use I as long as you're using it in academic content, okay? And it's logical. Pay attention to the question. What is the question asking you? Is it asking you for personal opinion? Is it saying give your own view or give your own opinion? If yes, then a first person voice is probably a good idea. If it's not asking you for a personal opinion, you can use the third person voice. All right.
Excuse me, Mr. Adrian, sorry to butt in,
Yeah.
but I have a doubt here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you said that if we're going to start from the very beginning, the first person have to go throughout the essay only with first person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have some problems here. Could you please make an example, a little example, please?
Yeah, sure. So here I have two essay examples. Okay. And the first essay example that answers this question that we're looking at today, it's a 6.5 to 7. And the second one that I'm going to show you is going to be a band 9. So I'm going to compare what a band 6.5 looks like to what a band 9 essay looks like. The first one is written in first person form. And we know that right away because of the thesis statement. Okay, so I'll get into these elements of the essay in a bit here. So again, let's just quickly look at the question one more time so you're clear on it. So in the future, all cars, buses, and trucks will be driverless. Do you think the advantages of driverless vehicles outweigh the disadvantages? And here, this essay, I can tell right away as an expert in English literature that it's written, or it should be written, in the first person voice throughout, because the thesis statement, which is right here, is written in the first person. So they say, I personally, they even emphasize the first person voice with the use of personally, because we could omit that. So we could say, I believe. But here, the author decides that I'm going to emphasize the fact that this is my subjective opinion of this subject. So I personally believe that driverless cars will bring far more benefits than the possible drawbacks they have. Now, this is a first person introduction. So here in the body paragraphs, there should be a continuation, okay? And a good example of where to continue with the first person voice is in the example. Now, here, this writer makes the mistake of not doing that. So here they have their example. An accident in which a woman died caused by a driverless car while still in beta mode caused a great uproar a few years ago. So that's third person voice, and it's awkward because they're telling me here that this is their personal belief, right? So the reason why this essay is a 6.5 to 7 is not because it's first person, but it's because of other mistakes, like this one, where the first person is not carried throughout the essay. So here it should state something like, I saw an article, or I read an article, I saw a newscast. And then it should be like this. I read an article in which a woman died because of a driverless car. So, and this cause. So we have to, of course, adjust the sentence for that first person. But you see how here now, I again remind the reader in my body paragraph that this is a first person essay. So it's not a third person essay. And I want to make sure that I have that throughout the essay. So again, in my example, in the second body paragraph, and then also in the conclusion. And this person does not do that. So they introduce their opinion here, but then in body paragraph 2 or 1 and 2 and the conclusion, they make it seem like it's objective, like everybody feels this way, instead of continuing with the concept that it's them that sees this and feels this way. Does everybody get that now? How it has to maintain first person?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I need to make sure I'm not losing you, okay?
Yeah, for sure you're not.
Okay. All right. Now, in the second example that we're going to look at, it's all third person. Okay. So you're going to see that there's no introduction of the I, me, my. It's all third person. Okay. Whether the essay is first person or third person, both can be a band 8, band 9. It just has to be consistent. Okay. It has to be consistent. Consistency of the author's voice is very important in writing. Okay. All right. So any other questions about first, second, third person voice?
Well, as for me, no.
No? Okay, good. All right. I'll take your silence as a no. Excuse me. All right. So just to give you a slight bit more information and a little bit of practice for you to take home, okay? Just to get this really clearly fixed in your thinking when you're writing. Realize that you have the combination of these 4 types of essays with these 3 voices in writing, okay? So basically, you have 12 simple or fundamental types of writing, okay? You have first, second, third person descriptive, you have first, second, third person persuasive, you have first, second, third person expository and narrative, okay? When you're writing your expository task 1 for your graphs and charts, make sure it's third person, okay? I've seen the mistake where people use the we, the us, the you, and even the I in task 1 academic when they're writing about a graph and chart. That is a big mistake. You will lose at least 1 band score for that, okay? Anybody knows why?
Because in task 1, they're not asked their personal experience. They're asked facts.
Yeah, you have the data, right? That's why they give you task 1. That's why they have the data, right? So you're reflecting on what the data is telling you. You never include personal opinion in task 1 because it's not scientific. You can't say, oh, and people probably bought more cars than bicycles because they were too lazy to ride their bikes to work. We have no idea. Maybe their workplace was too far to ride a bicycle, or they didn't have enough time in the morning. So you cannot include personal opinion and personal voice into task 1. Okay, that is considered a big no-no in the IELTS and in university. Okay, so expository task 1 is always third person, only report the information that is given to you. All right. Okay, so a kind of a good challenge for homework for you is try to write even one sentence with each of these combinations. Okay, so here's a little homework exercise that you can try, and you can compare it with each other in your classes. So write a sentence with each combination of essay styles and authors' voices. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Descriptive, and you should do it like this. Descriptive plus first person. Okay, and that would sound something like this. My house has a A-frame red roof. Okay, that would be a first person descriptive style, or we could, and then go through the second, the third, or we could do a narrative third person. Okay, you should be, so when you become really good at writing, you should be able to basically just spit these out on command. Okay, so narrative third person, the man slowly crept up behind the large bear with his sharp steel knife. Okay, so that would be a third person narrative. All right, obviously not you creeping up, not me creeping up behind the bear, but the man slowly creeping up behind the large bear with his sharp steel knife. Okay, so that would be your third person narrative, right? And you should be able to do any combination of these and recognize them clearly and accurately. Okay, All right. So moving along nicely, the question, there are some very clear steps that you need to take during the 40 minutes while you're writing your task to response. The first one that you should always take is just to paraphrase the question. The reason why you paraphrase the question is not because it's your introduction. Okay, that's again false information that you read on a lot of websites and you see in a lot of lessons where they say, okay, for the introduction, paraphrase the question. Like maybe at like the grade 7 level in middle school, that's how they start. But for high band essays, so for band 8, 9, 7, 5, you need to produce much better introductory paragraphs than a simple paraphrase of the question. Why? Because when you paraphrase the question for your introduction, you really haven't done anything. You've just shown a bit of lexical resource, so vocabulary range, but you haven't actually shown any true understanding of standard essay rules or writing. So if you write, for example, in the coming years, vehicles will be automated, right? So this first sentence here at the top, it says, in the future, all cars, buses, trucks will be driverless. In the coming years, vehicles will be automated. This is a paraphrase of this sentence, right? And then if I keep going here, so the only people in these machines will be the travelers. Okay, so I'm paraphrasing this next sentence here. And then do you think the advantages of driverless vehicles outweigh the disadvantages? Okay, so there are clear negatives and benefits to driverless vehicles, and I will discuss both and give my own opinion. Okay, so this is a kind of a very common type of introduction that a lot of people put forward in the IELTS. Now, even if you write it perfectly with no grammatical mistakes, no vocabulary mistakes, this will be a band 6 at best. Okay. Why do you think that is? So why is the IELTS examiner not likely to give you more than a 6?
Well, it's because we're just giving the same stuff with different kind of words. We're not showing our understanding or let's say academic skills related to the writing, right?
Yeah, you haven't done any convincing here. And it's unclear, it's vague, right? It's like, if I'm reading this, am I, like, think about it this way. If I'm reading this and I'm not the examiner, I'm just a person, right? I'm your friend or somebody who's reading this in a newspaper or magazine. Is this making me interested? Is this making me excited? Not really. It just seems really kind of mainstream and boring, right? So when you get into the band 8 or band 9 writing range on the IELTS, and it is possible to achieve that, then the examiner should feel that they're reading an essay that they actually enjoy reading. So it gives them some value, okay? People really value their time, right? So if I spend 10 or 20 minutes reading an article, at the end, I don't want to feel like I wasted my time, right? I want to feel like it was a valuable investment of my time. And to get into band 8, band 9 category, that's where you need to be. Now, it's easier to write an interesting essay that is well written with some grammatical mistakes, punctuation mistakes, vocabulary mistakes, and get a band 7.5 than it is to write a perfect template essay with no mistakes and get a band 6.5. That's why I'm showing you this. Did everybody catch that? That was a really important piece of information. Do you want me to say it one more time?
Yes, please.
Okay, so when you practice the right way, it's easier to write an interesting, persuasive first person or third person essay that has some mistakes, some grammatical mistakes, some punctuation mistakes, and get a band 7 or a 7.5 than it is to practice and learn a template essay online, like what I'm showing you here, and write it absolutely perfectly on the topic with no grammatical mistakes, no spelling mistakes, and get a 6.5. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so it's okay to make mistakes in your essay with grammar and vocabulary, but have good information, have good structure, have good academic format. Okay, that's more important. All right. Okay, so let's continue on with this then. Let's take a look. So to write our own essay will take a lot of time. So to be more efficient, what I decided to do in this class is just to look at some essays that I already completed for you. The first one I actually grabbed online from a source just to give you an idea. They claim that it's a band 8 essay, but it's not. Be very careful. A lot of the sample essays that you see online are overvaluated. They'll say it's a band 8, but it's really not. It's closer to like a band 6, 5, 7. So a lot of essays you see online are overvalued by as much as 1 or 2 band scores. Okay, so be really careful. When you understand how or what a great essay should look like, it will be clear. You will evaluate it yourself. You'll say, okay, that is a band 7 or that is a band 8. Okay, so let's take a look at this first response to this question. Okay, I'm going to go through it and I'll tell you what the examiner is thinking when they're looking at this essay, why they're scoring at a band 6.5 to 7. Okay, then you'll have a good idea. All right, so this is the first essay here, responding to this question about do the advantages of automated vehicles outweigh the disadvantages? First of all, I'm going to read this essay for you. Or you know what? Does somebody want to volunteer to read this essay? Instead of, we can hear somebody else's voice and you can practice your reading. Somebody want to put up their hands to do a little bit of reading?
May I do that?
Sure. I don't know who's speaking, but go ahead. Whenever you're ready, just a sec. I'm going to move the whole paragraph here down. Okay.
All right.
All right.
I'm ready now.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. With rapid technological development, driverless vehicles are becoming reality, and within a couple of decades, all cars will run without the intervention of a human driver. I personally believe that driverless cars will bring far more benefits than the possible drawbacks they'll have. To begin with drawbacks, driverless cars pose some risks, including accidents and casualties should the technology malfunction. Since the vehicles would be due to bugs or hacking could not be eliminated, it will make us more susceptible. Is it right?
Yeah, susceptible.
Susceptible to hackers and software glitchers. I read an article in which a woman died because of driverless car while still in beta mode, and this caused a great uproar a few years ago. Moreover, not all roads, especially those in the poor nations with ditches, holes, and insufficient road signals, are suitable for those automated cars to run smoothly.
Okay, just stop there for a sec. Let's see if we can give somebody else a chance as well. And we missed one sentence there. You jumped a sentence. Be very careful about that, students. So run and controlled by software and technology, the risk of devastating accidents. So we skipped that sentence, but that's okay. That was good reading. A little bit slower next time, okay, with a little bit more attention, but it was good. Who else would like to go for the second body paragraph and conclusion?
Shall I?
Masalia has
Sure.
the.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So.
Shall I start?
From however, yes.
However, technology made mistakes are astronomically fairer than man-made blusters when it comes to road safety and casualties. And this is where driverless automobiles can make a significant improvement. Though we point out a single accident made by driverless car, human drivers are responsible for hundreds, if not thousands, of casualties each day all around the world. With the introduction of automated cars, accidents would reduce remarkable, making roads safer for all. On the top of that, millions of hours could be saved each day, since we would no longer need to sit behind the wheel. It will increase our productivity and boost the national economy. In conclusion, driverless vehicles have many great benefits, including road safety and economic benefits. And it is expected that we could eliminate the software-related issues to reap the maximum benefits of this marvelous technology.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. So that was 290 words. And like I say, band 6.5 to 7 on a very, very good day, maybe a 7.5, but definitely not an 8 as what this was claimed to be online. Okay. All right. Just this word here, students, you can pronounce this blunders, blunders, blunders. Okay. Blunders are another way to say mistakes. Okay. So me as the examiner, when I'm looking at this, kind of a simple way for examiners to evaluate the essay is to think about, what level of a native English speaker in an average school in the US or UK would write an essay like this to get an A or an A+. Would it be a student in grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, 11, 12, first year college, fourth year university, master's level student? And when I read this essay, what comes to mind for me is that this would be a grade 10 or a grade 11 student in high school that would be able to write an essay like this and get an A or an A+ on their essay. At the university level or at the college level even, this would not be classed as a top level essay for multiple reasons, okay? It has good vocabulary. It has some good points, but the points are not clarified. There's an indirect thesis. There's a bit of disorganization and confusion with the points as well. There's a jumping of voices, as I mentioned earlier, so there isn't a consistent voice throughout the essay. I'll show you specifically what I mean, okay? So this introduction is a very basic introduction. This is what I showed you earlier, where mostly it's just paraphrasing the question, and it's going, okay, I'm introducing this to you by paraphrasing the question, but I'm not giving you anything further. When we look at the band 9 essay in a moment, this is going to become a lot clearer when you have the comparison, okay? And then they're using some very kind of template style expressions throughout the essay as well. So notice how here it says to begin with, okay? I recommend avoiding the use of to begin with or firstly, secondly. Does anybody know why? Why I wouldn't say to begin with or firstly or secondly for starting my body paragraph for a high level essay? Why it's not a good idea to do that? Anybody know?
It's maybe it's related to the personal opinion, right? Or not?
Or
Not quite.
maybe it's template.
It is a template, and it's not just that it's a template, it's the wrong template. So this is a persuasive essay. And in persuasive essays, we tend to not use firstly, secondly, thirdly. We tend to use words like furthermore, importantly, moreover. What type of essay, I should ask this then, what type of essay do you think makes use of to begin with or firstly, secondly? It's expository essays, okay? Especially process essays, okay? So the best way to make a cupcake, to begin with, you heat the oven to 400 degrees. Next, you mix the flour and sugar together in a bowl. third. Okay, so that first, second, third, or to begin with, next, finally, it's a process. It's usually used for a process and not to convince your reader. Generally, it's the rule of thumb. So when you get into the higher levels of writing, so first year college, university, your professors will give you this information in more detail. Okay, remember, Band 8, Band 9, you're targeting graduate level school where people know this information. Okay. All right, or you learn it here through our collaboration. All right, so however here is a bit better. Okay, that's a bit better used, but this to begin with is not all that good. And if you read the essay, you'll notice that there are a few other kind of template awkward types of expressions. So you do have to be careful with the leading expressions that you're choosing and the way that you're connecting your ideas. Also, some of the adjectives, some of the word use is a bit off. So if you look at this sentence here, however, technology made mistakes. Okay, this is a nice hyphenated form of the word here. Technology made mistakes, fine. But this here, astronomically fewer. It's awkward. Anybody know why this astronomically fewer is awkward?
It's grammar mistake, maybe.
It's just awkward use of language. Astronomically is usually used for something that's very big. Astros means the universe. So like the stars and the planets, the galaxies. So to combine the word astronomically with fewer is awkward use of language, especially in academic writing. It's conflicting. So instead of astronomically, the standard of academic or professional writing would be far fewer. Okay, are far fewer than man-made blunders. Blunders here is, again, a bit awkward. It's a bit too colloquial in this context. Okay, so are far fewer than man-made accidents, for example. All right. When it comes to safety and casualties, by the way, the pronunciation for this word is casualties. So I can continue to pick this essay apart, but at the end of the day, this is a man 6.5, on the best day, 7.5. So on a bad day, 6.5, on a good day, 7.5. Another point that I haven't emphasized is verb tense. So notice that in this sentence here, this last sentence, it says, it will increase our productivity and boost national economy. This is using the future participle will, right? Anybody know what the rule for academic and professional writing is when it comes to tense use? So past, present, or future participle will. Anybody know what the general rule is at the university or college level for using tenses in essays? It's a very standard rule across the board for every university.
Or is I guess is it good to use only present or passive voice? Is it?
Okay, that was a very good opinion. Almost, yes, you're very close. I'm going to say you're 95%. Anybody else?
Because of the topic, general
Yeah,
topic.
so okay, yeah, so I can feel your brains working. That's great. Yeah, no, the rule of thumb for academic professional writing is keep your writing in present tense and keep it an active voice, not passive voice, active voice whenever possible. Okay, that's a very, very standard rule again. So keep these in mind. And of course, for the Band 8, Band 9, yes, your examiner is paying attention to this. They're trained in professional writing. So essays, academic essays should maintain present tense and an active voice whenever possible. There's a very simple logical reason for this, okay? The reason why it's present tense is because what you're giving as the information should be true now in the past and in the future. So when we're looking at research or when we're looking at opinions, we want opinions and research that's valuable for us in the present and going forward. So we want our reader to know that this information is true now, it was true in the past, and it will be true in the future. So we use the present tense, present simple, present perfect, present continuous as much as possible. An essay that jumps tenses, in high school, the teacher will do this. So they'll do something like this. I'll show you. They'll go like, just give me 2 seconds here while I bring up my annotation tool. So they'll do this. They'll go, they'll do this in the marking. They'll go tense mistake, or they'll say movement in tense. Okay. Or they'll write stay in present tense, something like that. Okay. So instead of it will increase, it can, or it increases our productivity and boosts national economy. You literally have to bring it to present tense. Okay. Does that make sense for everybody?
Well, can I ask you something, sir?
Yeah.
In the very beginning, you talked about voices, right?
Yes.
Using the same voice from very beginning to the end, and this is the same. This is the same opinion about tenses, right? Using the same only present simple.
Yeah, exactly. So you should focus. A lot of times people think, oh, I have to use the will here, but in most cases, there is a way to use the present tense. So, and there are some rare exceptions, but I'm not going to get into that right now, like with direct or indirect quotes if they come into the essays. But yes, you have to stay in the present tense. Okay, so stay in for the IELTS, just focus on staying present tense for your now that includes present perfect, right? Because present perfect is something that started in the past, continues until now and the future, but stay in present tense. Okay, and also stay in active voice. So there's a very good reason for why academic and professional writing should be active voice. Active voice means that we know the agent of the action, so who is doing the action. And whenever possible in business or in research, we want to know what or who is responsible for the action. We don't want to leave the reader guessing who is responsible. The only time we use the passive voice is if we don't know who is responsible for the action. Okay, so we want to say something like Mr. Smith in 1998 created the first hydrogen fuel cell for the automobile. Okay, so we want to know the agent of the action. That's why we use the active voice and not the passive voice whenever possible. Does that make sense for everybody?
May I ask you something again, please?
Yes, absolutely.
It's about voices. Well, I have always thought that using the variety of voices can increase our band score related to the grammatical range and accuracy, but it's false, I guess. Okay, for instance, if I give a sentence, giving the name in first sentence, for example, Mr. Adrian. Mr. Adrian taught us blah, 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 blah. And when it comes to the second sentence, the continue of the first one, if I use passive voice, what happens? Because I used your name, for example, Mr. Adrian in the first sentence. Is it okay if I use in the rest of the sentence?
No. So if it continues to be about me in this case, and I'm doing another action, then you should use the pronoun he did this. Right? So you still, if it's my action, you should direct that action towards me, even in the second sentence. That's the standard. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use the passive voice. Okay. So I'm telling you that you should stay in the active voice whenever possible, but often there will be one or two instances in the essay where you can, in a clever way, introduce the passive voice to show the examiner that you can use the passive voice. You just have to think of a situation where you don't know the agent of the action. Let me give you an example with this essay, right? So let's say that we're not sure about who will be the first company to produce the first consumer grade automated vehicle, right? So we don't know which company. It's Tesla or it's another company that puts out the first vehicle for people to buy on the market. Okay, then you can use the passive voice. Okay, whenever the first consumer grade automated vehicle is put into is put on the market by who knows who, it will benefit the general public. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, of course, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so it's a good question. You can show that grammar range, but you have to show it in a logical way. Okay, ideally, right? We're really talking about band 8.59 kind of level writing now, but it was a good question for sure. All right, time is not on our side, so I'm going to kind of jump to the second essay now, which is going to give you a band 9 example to this question. Okay, so let's move there, and then I can give you a little bit more insight into what needs to happen for higher band essays. Okay, so let's take volunteers again, and this time we're going to go paragraph by paragraph, so I can give you a little bit more instructions on what you need to work towards for those high band essays and for your essays in college and university. Okay, so can I get a volunteer to read this introductory paragraph here?
Miss
Miss
Dinoza.
Dinoza wants
Yeah.
Zarina.
Okay, go for it. So read this paragraph for me here, starting with technology.
Technology companies around the world are in the race to deliver the first delivers vehicles for mass consumptions. Cars, trucks, and buses, their computer-navigated can revolutionize society and must be carefully accessed to ensure public safety and prosperity. Clear public concerns include the potential of health and employment risks. However, the upside of this technology brings greater efficiency and prosperity to humans.
Okay, good. Does everybody, like, even without me going into a detailed analysis here, can you see or hear the difference between that band 7 and band 9 level writing when you read this introduction?
Yes, it's more improved, and there is a high level grammatic and lecture resource.
The
Well,
vocabulary and the
as-
grammar are not actually that much more complex here than in the previous, but what you said before that, you're absolutely right, that there's a lot of improvement in the content here, in the composition itself. Okay, somebody else wanted to say a bit of opinion here. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, I want to say the same thing that you said. For instance, the vocabulary and grammar is not so complicated as the previous one, but it's difficult to express with words. Something is quite different and more it looks more academic here than the previous one.
Right, and let me show you what that is, okay? So this introductory paragraph follows what's called a standard academic essay format, all right? So first of all, it starts with a hook, okay? The hook is a sentence that introduces the topic of the question to the audience and captures the audience. That's why it's called a hook. It's like a fishing hook. It's literally comes from that concept of catching a fish. Your reader is the fish. You, the author, you're the fisherman, and you catch your reader with your hook by introducing the topic in an interesting way. So here we introduce the concept of driverless vehicles in an interesting format. We know, and many of us know, that companies like Tesla and other companies are racing, Mercedes and so forth, they're racing to bring the first vehicle, to unveil 2023. Here's the first Mercedes 300 that drives itself. You buy it and there's no steering wheel. So it captures your reader right away. They're like, oh yes, that's so true. I keep reading about this, right? So it has a very clear hook for your reader. It hooks the reader. Immediately you're engaging the content. And then it produces a background. Okay. The background is considered a definition and importance of the question. So, and you'll hear this from your college, university professors. Those of you who are going into a bachelor's degree, you will have some of these instructions, especially if you take a first-year literature class. Many of the majors for bachelor's, whether it's business or nursing or others, many of them have the requirement that you take first-year English literature. And in that class, your professor will go through many of these points as well. For those of you who are doing graduate studies, master's or PhD, you're expected to know this information, okay? So the background is definition and importance. So basically here, essay writing expects that you tell your reader why. Why are we talking about this? What are we talking about exactly, and why are we talking about it? So here we tell our reader that, okay, cars, trucks, buses that are computer navigated, right? So here this word or this collocation, computer navigated, means that, okay, you have a vehicle here where a computer is moving it from A to B, okay? And why is that important? Because it can revolutionize society. So it will fundamentally change the way that society works. And then why are we discussing this in this essay, the advantages and benefits? Because we're all a little bit worried about public safety and about prosperity. So does that mean there's going to be a few people who are even wealthier and richer, and the rest of us are all going to be poorer and have less money because we don't have jobs? So what does that mean for society? So that's the importance of the question. Okay, so a strong introduction will hook the reader, will catch the reader, will tell the reader why you're reading what you're reading, okay, and the definitions of what you're reading, and then it will produce a strong thesis. Okay, the thesis statement is the most important sentence in a piece of writing. And when you're reading IELTS passages, for example, you'll see the thesis statements very clearly in the IELTS passages as well. So the thesis statement is a very clear statement for your reader, telling them what they're going to read and the structure, how they're going to read it, okay? And in a good essay, this should always be direct. So there are two types of thesis statements. One's called an indirect, the other's called a direct. Again, I'm not going to go into too much details here, but indirect thesis statements usually get lower band scores. So in our previous essay, you saw the indirect thesis statement. I personally believe that driverless cars will bring far more benefits. What benefits? Than the possible drawbacks they have. What drawbacks? So here's the reader. All I have are advantages, disadvantages, but I don't have any other information. It's hard for me to stay interested. And the ideas here are vague. And I'm hoping, okay, the first will be the benefits, and then the second will be the drawbacks. But I later noticed that I get a bit of confusion here because it starts with the drawbacks and then it continues with the benefits. The rule in essay writing is the order of points in the thesis statement should coincide, should match with the order of points in the body paragraphs. So if this person understood the essay writing rules better, they would know that the first paragraph in this case with this thesis should be the benefits, which is not the way they want to write because they support the advantages. So what they should do here is they should reverse this order. So I believe that even though driverless cars have, so I'm fixing this person's essay right now, have some negatives, the benefits they bring are far more. Okay, so now the order matches the order of the thesis, the order of the body paragraphs. Does that make sense for everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and just imagine here we have 2 points, 2 body paragraphs, right? But when you're in university and you're writing a 1,500 word essay for first, second year students, that's usually your average essay length in university, 1,000 to 1,500 words. And for those of you who are in third, fourth year masters, your average is between 2,000 and 3,000 words for an essay. Obviously, you have a lot more body paragraphs than just 2. So if you don't have the correct order of points in your thesis statements, it's a big problem, okay? So with 2, it's like, well, okay, I can still make sense. But when it's more, it starts to become a lot more confusing. And so here you see a direct thesis. Okay, so direct and well-structured. So clear public concerns include the potential of health and employment risks. Okay, so that's my point 1 in the second essay. If I'm losing anybody, let me know. Okay, so this is my point 1. And then here I join with a semicolon, comma, but it doesn't have to be. So if you don't know this punctuation, you can just use 2 commas, or you can start a new sentence. Or do it in 2 sentences. However, the upside of this technology brings greater efficiency and prosperity to humans. Okay, so that's my point 2. And if I follow with this author, I will notice that the first body paragraph will deal with point 1, and the second body paragraph will deal with point 2. Okay, so the structure and the order are correct. All right. Okay, let's take another volunteer to read the second body paragraph here.
May I?
Sure.
Starting with many people, right? Or word.
Yeah, many people.
Many people worry that self-driving vehicles are prone to software and hardware flaws, which can result in road accidents and injury or even death to passengers. Indeed, a large malfunctioning self-driving truck could crash into civilians, right? Civilians, and cause real mortal danger. In addition, millions of jobs, including truck, taxi, and bus drivers, may no longer have jobs when replaced by automatically AI. The media has highlighted an accident in 2021 when a self-driving vehicle crashes into a transit bus, and mentioned that over 10,000 Canadian truck drivers stand to lose their jobs once Tesla AI delivery vehicles become mainstream. Nevertheless, such drawbacks of automated vehicles are negligible when compared to benefits.
Okay, good. All right. So that's the first body paragraph. The first body paragraph follows, again, the standard format of essay writing. And again, the vocabulary, not much more advanced or difficult than the previous essay. It's just a lot better structured, okay? So let me just do a little bit of vocabulary and pronunciation with you. It's the teacher in me, okay? So everybody can repeat these words after me. Just repeat them. Malfunctioning.
Functioning.
Okay.
Malfunctioning.
Civilians. What's written there? Civilians.
Yes, civilians.
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 Mortal danger.
Civilians.
Mortal danger.
Moral danger.
Moral danger.
Mortal. Good. That was good.
Mortal.
Okay.
Moral danger.
Mortal danger.
Okay. Negligible.
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 Negligible. All right.
Negligible.
Good. All right. So what is this paragraph doing? Well, what it's doing is it takes point number 1. So health and employment risks. Okay. So that was point 1, health and employment risks. A good body paragraph will have a topic sentence. The topic sentence gives a deeper definition of point 1. So point 1 is the negatives, health and employment risks. Okay. Now notice how there's no firstly, there's no to begin with, there's nothing like that. It just directly goes into the topic sentence. Many people worry, right? Because this piece of information connects this piece of information in the thesis. So when you learn writing at the highest level, then your teachers, your professors, especially at the master's level where you're publishing your writing, will tell you that don't focus so much on expressions, but focus more on information, connecting information, okay? And the best writing, it's always information that connects information. So here, I'm not using any kind of connective because simply the information connects to the thesis. So clear public concerns include potential of health and employment risks. Many people worry that self-driving vehicles are prone to software and hardware flaws. So this is a deeper definition of what those concerns are, which results in injury or even death to passengers. So injury and death to passengers is a deeper definition of those health concerns, okay? And then it goes into the explanation. So we have an explanation here. Often when you see writing lessons online, they'll say supporting point 1, supporting point 2. A better way to think about it is topic sentence, explanation, and then an example. Okay, so supporting point 1 should be an explanation. Supporting point 2 should be an example, all right? And this body paragraph has all these elements. So it has this clear explanation of what we mean by malfunctioning hardware or software. And then it has the clear example of the incident in 2001 and 10,000 Canadian truck drivers losing their jobs. Notice also how there's absolutely no jumping of tense here. Okay, so it maintains the present tense wherever possible. It doesn't say that over 10,000 Canadian truck drivers will lose their jobs. So here, okay, it doesn't say that they will lose their jobs. It says they stand to lose their jobs now. So in present, their jobs are already at risk. Okay, does everybody get that, right? So there's no jumping of tense. It stays in the present tense. It makes the person, the reader, feel that the negatives are already here. They're already present. It's not the negatives of the future. Same thing with the positives. And then, of course, there's a connecting or a concluding sentence here. Okay, the connecting sentence transitions to the second body paragraph. Nevertheless, such drawbacks of automated vehicles are negligible, so they're not so important when compared to the benefits. Negligible means they can be ignored or neglected. Okay, all right. Does somebody want to read the second body paragraph? And
May I read?
yeah, and when you're reading the second body paragraph, I want everybody to just pay attention to the same structure. So topic sentence, explanation, example. No connecting sentence because you don't need a connecting sentence to the conclusion. Okay, so go ahead and read, whoever's ready.
I am ready.
Go for it.
Good evening. A world filled with automated vehicle traffic can revolutionize the effective use of time and energy for people, and thereby significantly increase the quality of life when a person can focus their attention on tasks other than driving, such as work and entertainment. They can save hundreds of hours each month during their commute to work and school. Furthermore, AI-driven vehicle can lead to the digitalizations of cities, as people no longer need to concern themselves with time required to get to amenities. One research group reported that in the USA alone, over 100 trillion hours of driving time can be used for other activities with the implementation of automated vehicles.
Very good. All right. Good. So lots. No, it's good. And I strongly recommend everybody to do regular reading aloud. So reading aloud should be a part of your regular studies for IELTS. I recommend at least 15 minutes to 20 minutes each day.
Thank you.
So read aloud. All right, so that was good. All right, so just to reiterate, again, we can see in this body paragraph that you have a clear topic sentence, okay? Then you have a clear explanation, and then you have a clear example. Also notice one big difference between this band 9 essay and the band 7 essay, let's say, the use of numbers. So notice how here in this essay, the author introduces numbers like 10,000 Canadian truck drivers. Whoever was controlling the annotation with the blue line on Zoom, could you remove that for us, please? Just click the erase button because that's not my annotation. No, I don't know who did that, Zukra or Shardor, this blue line here. If you can remove it, that blue line. You just have to hit the erase. Okay.
Yeah, I will ask Mr. Sardor how this will
Okay.
delete it. Yes.
Here, and who is drawing? Mr.
Somebody
Picasso.
drew that.
Please.
Somebody drew that.
Yes.
I don't know who drew it. Maybe I drew it. I don't know. I don't think so. But let me. Nope, wasn't me. No, it's not me. Okay.
I think that they have special sentences.
All right. Okay, it's fine. We can ignore it for now. Don't pay attention to the blue line, everybody. That's not me. All right. Okay. So let's get back to this paragraph here. Okay. So notice the use of numbers, right? So here we have 10,000 Canadian truck drivers, and then here we have over 100 trillion hours of driving time can be used for other activities. 100 trillion hours, right? 330 million Americans. Just imagine how much they're driving each day. Imagine how much they drive in a year. 100 trillion hours. I don't know that fact. When I wrote this essay, I don't know if that's exactly true, but I would imagine it's somewhere close to that with 330 million people in a country. Okay. So, in the IELTS, you don't have to have real statistics or facts, okay? The examiner is not going to Google your information. They're not going to say, oh, I'm curious about this, right? So they're not going to do that. They're just there to give you a mark. But numbers certainly will help you, especially in your examples, because they make the information stronger, right? They make it more interesting. Remember what I said earlier in the lesson, band 8, band 9, the examiner, when they read your essay, they should think, wow, that was a good essay. That was interesting to read. Okay, now keep in mind, they're reading 20, 30, 40 of these essays during the week and marking them. So for yours to seem interesting compared to the other 39, you have to have good information. Numbers will help you with that. Okay, so having good facts will help you with that. Is everybody clear about that? So using some numbers like this in your examples? You can also do
I have a question. I have a question, sir.
Yes, go ahead, Hassan.
Yes.
Well, you have just told that the examiner is not going to Google our information, but in fact, in most cases, personally, I have always doubts about information because I have not a lot of experience related to the exam questions. That's why I mostly write their lives. I mean, I predict some kind of action or, let's say, circumstance in order to avoid to not writing their anything. For instance, if I have a extremely hard question that I have never experienced it, or even I do not understand, if I write there over fantastic stuffs like it's impossible to believe, but I have structured, as you mentioned, for instance, I supported them by ideas and supported by theses, what happens?
Yeah, so again, well, if your essay feels like it's just an average essay, you get an average score, right? You get a 6, 6.5, maybe a 7 if it's really well written grammatically, vocabulary wise, right? But if it feels like an average essay, it will be an average essay. It's the same in the speaking, right? So in the speaking section too, for 8 or 9, your responses have to sound or feel beyond average. So I do recommend that you include good facts or good made up information, but definitely believable, right? So this fact, if you think about it logically, this fact is believable. The USA has 330 million people, about 100 million of them drive. So 100 million people driving for the year can easily add up to 1 trillion hours or 100 trillion hours. So 100 million people, 365 days driving cars. Yeah, it's a lot of driving. So you can play it safe though. Like you could, if I wanted to be on the safer side, I could say over 100 billion hours, right? But maybe a little bit less like that, right? But yeah, so make it believable. If you give false information, like that's really unbelievable or confusing, yeah, that's bad. You don't want to do that. Okay, definitely. But be creative. Be creative. Don't be shy. Okay. All right. So let's read the conclusion now. Anybody want to volunteer for the conclusion?
May I?
Sure.
In conclusion, self-driving vehicles are on the horizon. Even though some people may feel anxious and relinquish human control of steering wheel, feeling at risk of injury or joblessness, they must see the benefits of efficiency and prosperity, as this technology is surely to be much welcomed development for social human evolution. 340 words, band 9.
There you go. Right. Okay, so a little bit longer, 50 words longer than the previous one. Band 8 to band 9 essays tend to be in the 300 to 330, 40 range because somebody at that level of writing should be able to produce that amount of words. Okay, so I did the IELTS exam one time and I accidentally wrote 500 words, which was a big mistake. I should have written less and been a little bit more careful. So I only got a 7.5 on that IELTS. But it's better to go a little bit shorter and then get a higher band score. And I've done that as well. And definitely around the 300 to 350 range is the sweet spot for the band 8, band 9 essays with very good grammar, spelling, and of course, very good content. Okay. Now, again, remember what I said earlier. I said that really important piece of information twice, that if you write 320, 330 words and you have some grammatical mistakes and some vocabulary mistakes, but your information is more or less similar to what we just read in this essay, you will still get a 7.5. Okay, so coherence, task completion is a very important part of your writing. All right. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell, everybody. I mean, we can keep going and going, but I'm going to stop there for now. And I'm hoping that most of you have a lot more clarity and insight into what standard essay writing is, not just for the IELTS, but in general for English and at the college and university level. What is expected of bachelor's and graduate students when you're going into your studies. And I think what I'm going to do now, Zukra, instead of giving even more information and Shardor, is just to give the students a chance to ask me some questions. We can maybe do like Q&A for 5-10 minutes. And then if there are any questions that come up, then I can give you some answers, hopefully, to those questions. How does that sound?
Yes, please.
Pretty
So
good.
we also have, and also have some like questions from the comments on YouTube as well, because more and more students are watching us apart from Zoom. And the first question is, how can I improve my grammar for especially task 2? Do I need complex sentences, complex grammar structures?
Yeah. Okay. Good question. So what I recommend for grammar is to study it, first of all. Okay. And not to be shy and to go back to the basics. Okay. So understand grammar and understand the reasons for using grammar. It's a big question and we could spend a lot of time on it. I'm going to try to be concise here. Okay. So when you're studying your grammar, what you should do is you should always reflect, review, refresh the basics, right? So the most basic sentence in English is the subject, verb, object, right? And then you write a sample sentence like, I eat oranges. I don't know. So that's your most basic sentence, right? And then you go through building your grammar into more and more complex variants, where you can eventually get to, you know, like let's say passive, present, perfect form of the grammar, where you have your subject plus the auxiliary verb, have, plus the auxiliary verb for the passive, be, and then you could even make it continuous, but I don't want to really confuse you. And then you have your verb and then your object. You could do, sorry, it should be, yeah, let's do it that way. Okay, and then you can even have your agent. Okay, so I have been driven to school for the past 10 years by my mom. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so you build up the grammar and then you understand it. And the most important part of learning grammar and to be able to use it effectively in your writing is to understand why you have grammar in English. So understand the reasons for grammar forms in English. And I'll ask you a question in return here. Anybody know why we use present perfect in English?
Well, to explain that we have experienced it in our lifetime.
Yeah, there's 5 reasons. The first one is experience or inexperience. So I have been to Japan. I haven't been to Japan. It means I experienced going to Japan. It was important for me, or I haven't experienced going to Japan, but I'd like to, right? Instead of saying I went to Japan or I didn't go to Japan. So experience is one reason. Anybody know another reason why we use present perfect? There's 5 in total.
When time is not clear, right? Or not?
Yes and no, but often it's not the time factor. And interestingly, you'll notice that we'll often even naturally make mistakes and include time, like past 10 years here. I'm including time. So we do use present perfect with some time frame, not the specific time, but we do use it with time. So it's yes, it started in the past, it continues until now, and probably into the future. And that's the how. So that's how present perfect works, but that's not the reason per se. It's experience. What are the other? There's 4 more reasons or 4 more common situations where we use present. Yeah. It's yes, exactly. Instead of result, it's better to think about it like achievement. Okay, so Uzbekistan has won a gold medal in hockey 3 times over the past 10 world championships, right? So that would be the achievement of the situation. Why? Because we achieved it. It happened in the past, and that achievement is yours forever. You will be the champions for the next 1,000,000 years, right? So for those years, right? So achievement or non-achievement. I haven't won a gold medal yet in my swimming career, right? So achievement, non-achievement. Any other? The 3 other ones? Okay, because it's question answer session. I'm going to be a bit quick so we can get to some other questions. Expectation. Okay, so have you done your homework? Your teacher expects that you do your homework. That expectation does not disappear. So have you done your homework? Your friend, they might just say, did you do your homework? They don't really care. But your teacher shows expectation by using the present perfect because it transcends time. So it's expectation, change over time. Wow, you have grown so big since I last saw you. And then repetition over time. Okay, so Uzbekistan has won 3 gold medals during the last 3 championships, repetition over time. Okay, achievement with repetition. So those are kind of the 5 main reasons we use present perfect. Every grammar form has a reason why we use it. You should never be using grammar, especially in writing when you have time to think about it, without purpose. Okay, so grammar should be purposeful, especially at the highest levels of writing. Remember what I said about using the active and passive voice in academic writing. Okay, that was related exactly to this topic. All right, that was a good question. So you want to practice those. And when you're doing your writing and you're using different kinds of complex compound grammar sentences using conjunctions, then you always want to check and ask yourself, why am I doing this right now? Why am I joining these sentences? How am I joining these sentences? Why am I using this grammar for this sentence? Okay, good question.
Okay.
Any other question? Yeah.
Yeah. The second one is, I usually run out of ideas during writing, so how it can be solved?
Yeah, it's a common one, right? I go blank.
Yeah.
It's called writer's block. Writer's block. It's actually the name of it. Okay. When the writer, here's a nice idiom for you, draws a blank. Draws a blank means cannot think of anything. It's just, wow, what's going on? Cannot think of anything, right? Okay, take a deep breath, look away from the paper. What you want to do when you draw a blank, when you have writer's block, each person's different. Check what works best for you, but go back to the basics. So planning is very important for your essay writing. And I didn't cover planning in this session because that's another huge topic, how to plan your essay. But definitely you want to spend 2 to 3 minutes planning your essay, okay? So you should never start writing your essay, your task 2 sentence by sentence. That is a horrible way to write, everyone, okay? So if you're like, okay, to begin with, people are scared of self-driving cars. Okay, what's my next sentence? The reason why people are scared of, okay, what's my next sentence? That is a absolute no. So that's a definite way to get a low band score because it's going to be disconnected. It's going to be confusing. Often it will go off topic. Sometimes it will just be repetitive, the same information coming again and again. So you need to plan, okay? So you should have ideas before you start writing. And there are ways to do that, okay? So of course, lots of different techniques. One is visualization, so see the information. See yourself sitting in an automated car, watching your favorite TV show. Your favorite TV show, or answering all the emails for work. Or doing your schoolwork, right? So visualize, see yourself, okay? See yourself driving a car, and an automated car with no drivers coming straight at you. It'd be pretty scary, right? So visualize, see information. A lot of people tend not to do that. So you want to see information. Think big to small, small to big, okay? So think big to small and small to big. So process information up, down, up. Okay, it's another way to get good ideas. So see yourself in a car, or think about, okay, one automated vehicle on the road, and then think millions of automated vehicles on the road. Okay, so try to approach the ideas from big to small. Okay, think about the examples, think about the reasons, think about what, why, how. Ask yourself questions. So without going into too much detail, those are some ways that you can unblock yourself and get to writing again. Okay, visualize, think of examples, think of micro, think of macro, or the other way, and ask yourself questions, what, why, how, and you should get some ideas. All right. Okay, anything else, Dukra?
Okay, yeah. And the last question is about the academic vocabulary and how to improve vocabulary for writing. And do you think advanced vocabulary is important?
Okay, there's a few questions in that question there, but I will do my best to clarify the answer here. So to learn academic vocabulary, do lots of reading. Okay, reading is a great way to pick up vocabulary. For those of you who have e-readers, those are brilliant because you can tap on new words and it will tell you the definition. So read lots, use new vocabulary as soon as you see it in your speaking and your writing. Don't be shy. You just use it. And to answer the second question that was in there, is academic vocabulary important? It is kind of important. So the reason I'm saying that is because yes, vocabulary will help you to express ideas clearer in a more concise way. Okay, so having more vocabulary. can help to express ideas clearly and concisely. Okay, concisely means in a shorter format. All right, and at the high levels of writing, concise writing is very important. Okay, you don't want to have wordy writing. Using words unnecessarily is bad writing. It's called wordiness. Okay. It's referred to as wordiness. Professors really don't like it, especially in the third, fourth year of university. Okay, they'll start pulling red lines all over your page and saying, this is not needed, this is not needed, this is not needed. And your mark just keeps going down, down, down. So be careful. You don't want to be wordy. And IELTS examiners don't like it either. They have a lot of essays to read. They don't like to read unnecessary extra words. Okay, so so be concise. So again, it's kind of important. Keep this in mind. You can write a good essay with low vocabulary, and you can write a bad essay with lots of vocabulary. So it's not just about your vocabulary, but it's more about how you use your vocabulary. Okay, everybody clear on that? That's a very important point.
For sure. Very interesting and useful tip, actually, because most of the students think that academic vocabulary is the most important thing, and I must use as much as possible.
No. Yeah, so academic IELTS, right? IELTS is not just a test of English. If IELTS is just a test of English, you don't have two versions. Then you just have one version, and that's your test, and it tests your English, and that's it. IELTS is testing your thinking and the way that you think and the way that you apply your knowledge, especially the academic IELTS. So you have to be very attentive. You can't, so you have to remember that Western education focuses a lot more on critical thinking and problem solving than on memorizing pieces of information like vocabulary. Okay, so it's much more important on how you use your vocabulary than using lots of vocabulary.
Understandable.
Okay.
We have the word sounding weird, right?
Or to say that in the positive way, you have to sound intelligent. Yes, exactly. Or read intelligent. Yes, exactly. Okay, anything else?
No, I think it's already time to stop because it's already kind of more than 1.5 and almost 2 hours. Thank you for providing very useful tips for writing, actually. They were very useful.
You are most welcome.
Am I audible here? So
yes, you are.
But my camera is not working. Mr. Adrian, thank you so much. It's it's amazing that you are almost 2 hours here, and I am so proud working with you. And thanks to our subscribers, our students, and we hope you are enjoying this. And I only wish good luck to you, and so we are proud of these lessons. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Sharder. Thank you, Zukra, and thank you everybody for being here. It was great to be here, and I hope that you picked up a lot of.
Thanks for a great question.
Thank you so much for your information, sir. You provided approximately 4 hours